Next up, Jessica Young.
All right, thank you. So today I'll be presenting some preliminary findings from a study that we did beginning in July. The study is ongoing, so I'll be sure to note what we have and what we don't at this point in time. But essentially what we're looking at is returning research results to study participants. And so in 1999, PXE International discovered that ABCC6 was the gene that was associated with PXE. And since then, PXE International has done a couple of different studies looking to identify mutations or variants in individuals that are affected by PXE. So the first study was done in the early 2000s and looked at more than 270 individuals. And currently there's a study going on that's looking at an additional 636 individuals. And the intent for these studies has always been to return the results. And this is because the participants have been requesting them, and it's been getting close to 20 years that these requests have been coming in. However, oops, there we go, sorry about that. Returning research results has not always been common in studies. And there's lots of concerns and discussions over the legal and ethical issues regarding returning research results. Some of the arguments against returning research results have been that it's important to keep the distinction between research and clinical care. There are different certifications required for research versus clinical labs. This can sometimes add cost or time to research studies. And then also for people receiving research results, they do require confirmatory clinical testing, which can sometimes cost money. And for those that can't afford it, this can result in a healthcare disparity. More recently, as genetic information is becoming regarded as, increasingly regarded as relevant health information, it is becoming more commonplace to return research results, and this is because it's thought to show respect for research participants. And some recent studies have been done that have shown that there's little psychological impact for people receiving their research results. One of which is cited down below and was looking at individuals who were at risk for Alzheimer's disease. But these studies have also been done in individuals at risk for Huntington's disease, as well as Lynch syndrome, which is a hereditary cancer predisposition syndrome. However, little research has been done on returning research results to participants who have already received a clinical diagnosis. And so that brings us to the goals of this study. So we wanted to assess participants' attitudes towards receiving the information about the two ABCC6 variants or mutations that are responsible for their PXE. We wanted to look at the impact of receiving these results, the satisfaction with the mode of delivery, and the changes to knowledge or understanding. And in terms of who we looked at, we focused on returning research results to participants who had two mutations found by one of these listed research teams in ABCC6. So individuals who had one or three or more mutations were excluded, as well as people who had more complex results. And this was just to streamline the project and remove a confounding variable. Overall, 165 individuals were invited to participate, and they were split across 3 different groups. So receiving results by phone, email, or mail. And just of note, the mail group we're still receiving data for that. So moving forward, we'll just be speaking about phone and email groups. But overall, what we did was we gave a pre-results disclosure survey and a post-results disclosure survey. And then we also included with the results some educational material just to help participants put this information into some context. And so far, we've got 57 people who have completed this study so far. This is just a graph to show the distribution of the variants. And you can see the most common ones that we've returned were in R1141X and DAL2329, which, as we know, are the most common causes of PXE. And then not shown on this graph are an additional 29 variants that were found only in one individual. So quite a range in what we've returned. And then in terms of our results, we did find some interesting things. So I want to talk just a little bit about the anxiety and excitement that we assessed in individuals. And so we've included both of them on this one slide, but you can see the scale was the same for both. And we asked people before they received the results how anxious or excited they were feeling, and then after how they were feeling now that they had received the results. And we asked this on a scale of 1 to 5. And so 1 was not at all anxious or excited, and 5 was very anxious or excited. And you can see with anxiety, there really was no change in the pre-results, which is blue, and the post-results, which is purple. There wasn't really a shift at all. However, excitement did change. So people after receiving their results tended to be quite a bit less excited, with a lot more people responding in the ones or twos. And there's a couple of reasons we've thought so far for why this might be the case. The first is that these research results were essentially just a string of letters and numbers. So we weren't really telling anybody any new information, as all the participants had already been diagnosed with PXE. And the second reason is we did also see an increase in the understanding of genetics, and especially in terms of the limitations of what genetics and genetic testing can tell us. We know genetics is very complex, and a lot of people don't think about this every day like some of us researchers do. And so there are some misconceptions in the general population just about what research results actually are, and what they can tell us. And so with that increase in understanding, we think that may have played a role in decreasing the excitement, just because it's maybe a more realistic view of what we could actually tell you. And then we looked at, again, comparing the email versus the phone groups. I know there's a lot going on in this graph, but we wanted to really show it all at one time. But what we're looking at are a number of different variables. All of the blue bars are the phone group, whereas the purple bars are the email group. And then the clusters on the left will be the pre-results delivery survey, and then the clusters on the right are the post. But essentially what this graph is showing is just that there was no statistically significant difference in terms of really our assessment of knowledge or understanding or the anxiety between the phone and the email group. We did, however, see the people that received their results by email were more excited before they got their results. And then they also experienced a larger change towards decreased excitement after they received their results. But overall, the efficiency or the effectiveness of both of these methods of delivery seem to be about the same. The email group did tend to be preferred, however, and this was just because there was a few people in the phone group that requested to be switched to the email group, just because that was more convenient for them. But in conclusion, we didn't find any changes to the anxiety level or any measures that suggested that participants regretted receiving their research results. And so overall, we think that there was no real detrimental effect in returning these results. We did see, however, an increase in understanding. And again, in particular, towards the limitations of genetics and genetic testing. And so we recommend that future researchers consider including some educational material to help participants make sense of their results. And we also hope that the insights from this study are encouraging for researchers that are considering returning research results to participants and maybe make this a little bit more doable for them. And then in conclusion, I'd just like to acknowledge, first of all the people who have volunteered their samples, whether that be blood or saliva, over the years. I'd like to acknowledge my research team. And then we'd like to give a special thanks to the PXE International Center of Excellence in Research and Clinical Care at Jefferson, and because they were the ones that did all of the study to find the mutations that we returned. And I will then stop for any questions at this point.
Any questions? So while we're teeing up questions, I got one question in the chat asking me to say something about who Jess is. Jess is a genetic counseling student at Northwestern University. Genetic counseling students and other students intern at both Genetic Alliance, my umbrella group, as well as for PXE International. And Jess did what's called a rotation with us this summer, only 6 weeks long. So she got a lot of work done and then got a lot of help from Matthew and Tamara during the summer. Is it possible to get the results for yourself? Yes, we have emailed everybody. 167 people, as Jess said, were eligible to receive their results, meaning we had your results. And of those, 57 agreed to receive them. The other 110 of you ignored me. So again, another plug for paying attention to what we're sending out and trying to get involved, because we really need people to be part of these kinds of things. You saw that we had done these mutations in 2 batches. In 2000, we placed a special detection machine that now is maybe even laughable in Belgium, in Olivier Vonneker's lab. You just heard from him earlier. In Hawaii, in Olivier Lassault's lab. You saw Viola, who came out of his lab doing some work there. In a South African lab with Dennis Viljoen, we have Anna Suzanne Marais on. She was part of that project. And another machine there was a fourth machine. Oh, in Philly with Yoni. And so in the initial 270 something mutations came all those years ago, 20 years ago. And now Yoni and Lili are doing a massive study of 630 something people. Those results are not available yet. And we'll do another round of this, giving you the opportunity to receive your results. But if you don't answer us, we're not forcing you. That would be highly unethical for us to return the result without your permission. And then somebody else asked, do we know what these mean? No. You saw work like Patrick's is trying to understand what happens when this structure has a mutation, and how does it alter the structure, and what does it do to the structure? And so we don't understand what the mutations mean. We just know that 2 mutations in both genes mean you have PXE. Anything else?
Let me, maybe Sharon, I can comment. So getting the information of the specific mutation, yes, there is no genotype-phenotype correlation. So looking into the mutation itself, you cannot say that you are going to have worse disease or milder disease and what's happening to your eyes. But where the major importance of knowing the specific mutation lies at this point is that there are new treatments coming online. Not yet, but are in the preclinical level, and undoubtedly will be in early clinical trials within a couple of years' time. You have to know the specific mutation, because some of those approaches work only for certain kind of mutations. So I believe that it's very important you know your specific mutations and participate in the PXE International study. And Jessica, by the way, terrific job and good luck to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to add on to what Yoni said, we're not going to make you each responsible for going to the doctor and saying, I have R1141X, and so what drug do I take? But when we get to the point of having drugs that are specific to classes of mutation, I think someone, it might have been Olivier Vonneker, showed there are missense, there's nonsense, there's different ways that these mutations affect the gene. And so this information will be very important. We won't expect you to have that kind of on your insurance card. That won't happen, but we will continue to inform you as we go. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Lori. You just put she'd love to join any research. She's new and did fill out the survey. So all the surveys you filled out are applicable to current research. We don't ask any questions that we're not using. And we're only able today to show you a small bit of the research that PXE International is involved in and that the world's involved in. So yes, everything you give us is relevant to the current research. All right, well, Jess, I want to say publicly thank you for joining PXE International for this stint. Jess is not quite done because together we'll all write a paper about this, and there's still a few people that we're trying to follow up with. So thank you very much.